when you want the best possible outcome for a day or the best possible outcome for a life. You know, when I was a kid, I was raised Catholic, and I never fell in with the Catholic Church. You know, and there's big news lately. Pope Francis said civil unions for gay couples gets the church's blessing. It's kind of super exciting, actually, that big news has come right now. But you know, when I was younger, I really couldn't resonate with the Catholic Church. There was just too much that was going on. I felt patriarchal. It felt like women didn't have rights, and so it never resonated with me. And I spent a long time looking for the rules that I should live by, because I kind of grew up in a family where there was a lot going on, you know, and like a lot of families, parents and children were kind of in their own worlds, dealing with their own level of stress and their own conflicting, you know, reality around them. You know, so when I grew up, everybody was kind of on your own for the most part, emotionally, to sort your own way out. And so I was always on the lookout for the rules to live by. And my rules started with, I won't treat people the way that I've been treated. You know, as in, so when I was younger, I felt tormented a lot by people. I felt my emotions were constantly on high alert. This was because there was some trauma and because I have a sensitive nervous system and I'm empathic. But I would get triggered a lot by people when I was little. And because of that, and it hurt, and I felt like I was small and ashamed and belittled, I vowed to myself, you know, the 4-year-old child vow, that I would never treat anyone the way that I was treated. Well, that only takes you so far, you know, because when you refuse to ever be angry, when you refuse to ever be hurt, when you refuse to ever be to ever stand up for yourself because it might hurt somebody else, that only takes you so far in the real world. In the real world, you're surrounded by other people who went through the exact same thing that you went through. And they've got their issues, and they're afraid to stand up for themselves, and they're afraid that they don't deserve to be treated well. You know, they went through the same sorts of insecurities and feelings. And when that happens, we keep looking around for people who somehow have some magic answer, some magic pill. And that's how many women end up in relationships with narcissists. Because if they didn't have good rules, if they didn't have good role models, then a narcissist seemed like a prince charming of some sort. Like they had the answer. They have confidence, and they've got security in themselves, and they've got forward thinking. Many women never say that they chose to marry someone who was narcissistic. They actually fell in love with the positive side of someone who had narcissistic tendencies. It's just that the other person couldn't stay regulated anymore. So I was looking for rules to live by. I was looking for guidance and understanding about who I should be. Should I show up to the world and be angry? Should I show up to the world and be hurt? Should I be authentic? Should I hide everything? Should I put it all in my heart? Should I just ignore what's going on? You know, so I kept spinning around and around trying to find the best way to live my life. And I tried the first one, which was take responsibility for everyone around me and always be perfect no matter what. I tried that one for a really long time. And it can get you some levels of success. You can get jobs, you can get respect, you can get an outer world that looks like that you're successful. But your inner world, which is the one that matters the most, ends up feeling like it's never enough, like it's never good enough, and it's always 2 steps too late. Like it can never get ahead of the game. This is where we get this OCD. This is where we get type A personalities. This is where these things come from, is because we're so freaked out that we don't want to allow ourselves to be human beings because it just feels too big. feels too crazy and scary and icky and awful. But you start to learn you have to stand up for yourself. Why? Because people learn by being in relationships with each other. And if we're all feeling behind the eight ball, if we're all feeling like we're not good enough, if we're all carrying trauma, then someone needs to take a stand. And the stand needs to be for love. Now, I know love is the main principle of a lot of spiritual practices. And there's a reason. I'm someone who lives in the physical world. I'm someone who, when I walk through the world, I feel things first. I don't see them. I don't hear them. I feel them. That's just how I'm personally wired. So as I feel my way through the world, I've discovered that on a physical realm, all the science points to that when we show up to the world in a good way, when we show up to the world in a way that respects ourselves and respects another person, someone that loves ourselves and loves another person at the same time, when we show up in that way, it's like a higher order of thinking, It goes from I'm going to respect and love you, or I'm going to respect and love me, and that's a lower vibration, isn't it? That's a lower thought process. This is now we're thinking on a higher level, where it's I love me and I love you, I respect me and I respect you. And when we make those changes in how we start to live life, something happens, something very magical happens. On a physical level in your body heals itself. That's where those miraculous healings come from. They come from regulating nervous systems. They come from believing and living in a way that feels good for everyone. That's a higher order of thinking. You have to force yourself to think on that higher order. You also start to relax and notice opportunities around you that you didn't see before. You also waste less time because you're no longer hijacked wondering how you should react or what you should say or how you should respond. Instead, the answer is always come back to center, come back to center, come back to center. And every time you come back to center, one, you're building that muscle, but two, you're lining things up to work. You are taking your energy back. Because I know, when you look at the studies, people spend most of their time thinking about the same handful of thoughts. They spend 90% of their time thinking about the same 5, 6, 7 thoughts, and that's it. And that keeps you stuck in your pattern. When you decide you're going to think on a higher level, one that respects you, one that respects the other person, it comes up with a higher order of thinking, with a third solution. Then when you get triggered, the only answer is to regulate yourself, to get yourself back in balance. And when you're in balance, you're able to see your way through problems easier. You're able to find solutions. And the more you look for higher level solutions, the more you find them. And if you don't believe me, start listening to the women that hang around me, that work with me, that coach with me, and they will tell you miracles which happen in their life. Not necessarily all at once, but in small ways, a small miracle here and a small miracle there. They'll start to tell you that things shift in how they live their life and how life shows up for them, and that now they see opportunities instead of problems and they're able to solve them. And now they don't waste time worrying about the same 6 or 7 things. Instead, they know to calm themselves down, and the answer will naturally appear out of that field of consciousness, out of that place of peace. That's where the answers come, not out of a place of feeling off balance, but out of a place of peace. So if you give yourself permission to react to the world, to respond to the world in the way of your choosing, in the way that you decide you want to show up to the world, and it's a way that's more balanced and more fair. You don't get confused about whether you should defend yourself or run away or beat somebody up or try to look scary. You don't worry about those questions anymore because you always know how you're going to respond. It's your script. And your script is to love yourself and to love the other person overall. And if you don't, then you need to take a step back until you can. Because the only and the best and the most abundance manifesting way forward, the highest leverage thing that you can ever do is when you are off balance, is to bring yourself back into balance. So notice it, start practicing it, start loving yourself, and start holding to love. Because even just the other day, a wonderful woman who is so successful in so many areas of her life, in banking and in relationships and in taking steps forward, still deals with narcissism. And so from the coaching we've done and all the work she's done in her own life throughout her whole life, she planted her flag and she said, I'm going to only wish for the best for all of us. At all times, I'm only going to wish for the best for all of us, and stayed focused on that. And because she did, miracles happened. People changed their minds. People saw things differently. People came into balance. They came into alignment. They became the people that they always wanted to be. They became a better version of themselves. But the only way that happens is when we make a choice, when we decide what are our rules, what are our laws, what will that look like, what does it look like for us, and what are we going to do to make sure we walk that path? Because once you start walking that path and you get the blessings and the understandings and the insight that come from that path and the miracles that you see, you never will ever go back. There's no need, because the other way, the way of dysfunction, the way of dysregulation, the way of anger and the way of hurt and the way of our own internal insecurities, that way leads towards madness. Not only madness, but where we get stuck, where we can never make our genius come true, where we're always stuck in our own imbalance. So balance yourself out. When you feel sad, hurt, angry, off, worried, scared, do something that you know makes yourself feel better. Do something that you know will bring you back to a higher place of thinking, to good, orderly direction, to a connection with spirit, to a connection with all that is, to a connection with yourself, your higher self. Do what you need to do. That has to be the first priority. Not what should I do and being stuck and not knowing. But instead, you've already decided, the decision is already made, and now your job is to figure out what you need to do to stay in that place of love. Okay? So I hope you have a great Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I plan on it. And make sure that you like or ask to follow these live streams so that you get alerts for them if you want to stay on this path and start moving forward in a really positive way. Okay? Have a great rest of your day. Bye.